Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back into the Franchising 360 show. I am Tim Parmeter. With me, as always, is Danielle Wright.
Hi.
Hello, and we are here to talk to you about all things franchising. Tonight, we're going to kind of follow up on a question that came into us last week, and one of the really common questions, right? So this whole franchising thing, yeah, it sounds great, but Danielle, how much money can I make?
I don't know. How much money can you make?
I don't know. I want to make, lots and be able to figure this out, right? So it sounds great to have a business, but
I have bills.
Yes.
I have income.
Yes.
I have a job.
We
I
need to
have
buy
kids.
Pizza and chili dogs, as we
chili
we
dogs,
were talking
pay
about.
for new cars. I mean, all of the things.
Yes. So,
yes.
But it is certainly and should be on everybody's mind as they're looking at this, right?
Right. Well, it needs to be something that's thought about. I'm not sure that I'm a big fan of making that the decision-making piece. But kind of in your world, you experience this a lot more than I do. By the time they reach me, it's I really love that franchise. I want to learn more. But what does that kind of look like for you and the clients that you work with and trying to figure out a franchise?
Yeah, and kind of your side, my side type of thing, right? As we go back. So Danielle's been on the franchisor side for 15 years, has her own company called Create a Shift, which works with franchisors. My company is called Fran Coach, and we help people find the best franchise to own, right? And so a lot of our journey is this, right? Is how much money can I make? And the first couple of answers I always give to this are probably borderline annoying, but they're honest. Well, one, however much you want. And then it's, well, which franchise I want to make X amount. So which franchise can I do that with? Right.
Putting the cart before the horse.
Right. I want to make $100,000. Which franchise is the best one? And I'm going to say all of them, any of them, right? Because the money follows the fit. And it is the most, to me, one of the most important parts of the journey looking at this is just that. And so, well, what's that mean, right? Is so if a franchise is looking for an owner who, and this is extreme, but Danielle, we really need an owner that is great at cold calling, right? You got to go out there and knock on doors all day, every day to build this business.
Not my cup of tea.
So I don't care how great every other owner in that system is doing. Guess what? You're not going to want to get out of bed and go do this.
No.
It sounds horrible.
Right.
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 But
I could make a lot of money doing it. But I don't want to.
Right. If you don't want to, you're not good at it. You're going to find every excuse not to get out there and do it every day. You're going to have a lot of clean laundry in your house because you're not going to leave to go do it.
So when you talk about how much money can I make, are people asking this question because they're trying to replace their salaries? Is there a thought that, hey, I've invested in, that crypto thing where people made lots of money randomly? What does that kind of look like?
And I think that's a good question and a good clarification, because people tend to look at the wrong thing, right? And not necessarily it's wrong, or they just don't know better yet, because they're coming out of the corporate world, as so many people do. As so many people do, right? I'm sick of working for the man. I'm sick of making them all the money.
Yes.
I want to do this myself.
Right.
But my job, Danielle, I make $150,000 a year with my job. I need to replace that salary.
Okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
So now that's totally different than what the business.
It's hard to tell them if a business is going to do that for them, though, right?
There are ways in the process to understand how to do the math for it.
Okay.
And we definitely want to hit on that a little bit more. But this is where that money follows the fit, right?
Okay.
Number one, if it's the wrong thing. And then also understanding how to look at what you make as an employee is totally different than what you make as a business owner.
Please tell me more.
I would love to. So, and we can kind of get into this a little bit more. In fact, this is a bigger thing. So let's get into
everything that we talk about here is a bigger thing.
I know. Hopefully, well, and again, it's all about that education piece, right?
Right.
Most people don't know nothing
and
about
it's a
nothing.
valid question. I think even members of our team here at the Franchising 360 show are, can I, should I, what does this look like? So we're answering the questions, not just for our viewers, but for our team too.
Exactly. So what we're going to tackle when we come back is that question is, I make this much as my salary, right? Why is that not the same as a franchise owner? So we're going to come back to that right after these messages here on the Franchising 360 show. We are back here on the Franchising 360 show, and right before break, we had a great question from Danielle here on, again, how much money can we make is what we're trying to understand and really even understand how we understand it, right, in this world. So your question when we're thinking about kind of transition out of the corporate world, what was that question?
Well, I think you said it was, I'm making $150,000 in my job. How do I make that as a business owner? Or is that what it looks like to be a business owner? I'm not really sure what we're trying
So how can that, right, if and because it's what a lot of people will say, right? They've got to replace
we got to replace an income, right? But I think what we forget is we're kind of addicted to paychecks as employees.
Yes.
And we forget that we pay a lot in taxes. So what do you, that pesky word net?
Yes.
To my bank account every 2 weeks is this.
Right.
Is that right?
Correct. Right.
So how do I replace my net that my paycheck is every 2 weeks, or how do I replace the thought process in my head? I bring home $150,000 every year.
Right. Well, and that's the piece, right?
Okay.
As well, I make 150. Well, okay, that's what your salary is, but what are you actually taking home, right? And probably after tax, you're taking
you're married, you've got 2
105.
kids, you know, all of the things. They're in daycare, this, that, the other. We are not CPAs. Like you have to talk to you got to talk to your tax professional about a lot of these things. But I get it. Okay, so people come to you and ask these questions. What is it that you share with them?
Yeah,
when
and I
thinking
think
about it that way.
No, because it is. It's like if we just do basic math, right? We're making our salary's 150. We're probably taking home 105, right?
Okay.
Then we're paying all of the bills for our house and our existence, right? So first off, you're not replacing 150, you're replacing 105, right? To begin with, but
because that's what you need to go into your bank account to pay your mortgage, to pay your cell phone bill, to pay your car, pay your insurance, all of those things.
Right. But a lot of those things you just said now become business expenses.
Oh. Okay. Like what?
So
how?
My car.
So many questions.
My car is now the business car.
Okay.
Because I'm driving it around conducting business, right? The cell phone that I'm using to call customers and vendors and all of this stuff.
Place orders, all of those things.
Talk
to my franchisor.
Right? The gas that goes in the car insurance, the cell phone. I'm going to have a home office, right? Even if there is a physical spot, we're going to have a home office. The internet from your home, right, can be rolled in as a business expense.
Okay.
So now those are things that I needed the money to pay, but now those become business expenses.
But I still have to pay them.
You still have to pay them, but you don't need to take that money home to pay them. And then the other piece is, right, this is where we're not CPAs, right? But if anybody that owns or knows somebody that owns a business, what are they going to talk about? Oh, that's a write-off.
Oh.
So those things all...
There's a show that's popping in my head right now that if our viewers pay attention to, you'll get the write-off.
Which is?
Schitt's Creek.
Oh.
Isn't it a write-off? Who pays for it? The government.
So, and that's SCH.
Yes.
Right. So, and then 2 T's, I think. So, but all of those things, those are expenses for the business, then kind of lower how much tax we have to spend on it.
Okay.
Right. So you can kind of do this, and we've done this with clients kind of conceptually, is a side by side. And if your salary was 150, you probably need maybe half of that eventually out of the business to become equal.
So when we're talking about how much money we want to make or how much money we need to make from the business, and you're saying you pay yourself, and we dial it back to the previous episode of like the investment and the working capital. Is that paying yourself in that investment?
It can be.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And this is where...
And do franchises like tee you up for that? Like, do they have that conversation?
So as you like to say and point out, which is very accurate, is the franchisor is not your employer. They're not your boss.
Oh,
you are an independent business owner.
Right.
So everybody's going to be a little bit different on that. Could you technically, as a franchise owner, pay yourself a salary right off the bat?
You could, right? If the business is making it.
Or depending on how you're going to fund it and all those things that are going to go.
So I could borrow enough money to pay myself while I'm starting the business.
That operating capital, if I want part of that, I've got salary or wages for everybody else.
If my monthly expenses are $5,000, I can roll that into my working capital.
I can, yes, absolutely, right? So some do, some don't, right? Because it's everybody's kind of personal like situation, whether they want to or need to. And some owners do. Others are not going to maybe take any money out of their business at the beginning to kind of roll everything back into it to help grow it faster.
Okay. So maybe necessarily going and taking out more money or more debt, you take what you make and put it back into paying for stuff.
If I own a franchise and
this is a very complicated question.
It is, right? And we'll get into a lot of layers with it. But if I own a franchise and you have a regular job, or your business is making enough money to pay for all of our bills at home, then I may not need to take any money out of that business right away. And now any of the profits can now really be rolled right back into it to help grow it.
Okay.
So that's, and really kind of how we figure out how much money can be made in a business and in a franchise. I would definitely want to talk about that too.
Oh, yeah.
Because again, like you said, there's the
roles are reversed at this table right now.
How much money, right? How much money can you make? But but is that the individual or is that the business? Because those are two
different things.
Two very separate things.
Right.
So understanding, let's talk a little bit about how we understand what that business potential is for a particular franchise.
Well, especially in franchising. Well, first off, on the franchise side, like we don't tell you how much money you can make.
Right.
That's why this conversation is very difficult for me right now.
And because you're used to being on
not to.
You're used to being on that side where there's a little bit more legality to it. But let's hit up on that, and then kind of how we can still use the information provided to get a little bit of a handle on that.
Franchisors do give you some information, and guess what? You can always talk to people.
You can always talk to people. We're going to talk to you after this with a little bit more on how much money you can make and how you can figure that out here on the Franchising 360 Show. Welcome back to the Franchising 360 Show. We are talking about money today and how much you can make and how you understand it. And Danielle, of all the episodes we've done, this is the one that makes you a little squeamish from all of your years on kind of working for franchisors or having them as your clients. Then, so kind of talk through the reason a little bit. It's not that you don't know anything, because you know way more than me on all of this, but why do franchisors maybe sometimes kind of get the same thing when people are like, well, so, hey, franchisor, how much money can I make? What stops you there a little bit?
So what stops me is a reverse question. So if I tell you you're going to make $100 and you don't make $100, you're going to be mad?
Oh, it's totally your fault.
It's totally my fault.
Be me.
I told you would make $100, right? So little history or something to know about franchising. Franchising is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, right?
We think.
And so that's a story for another day. But that sets parameters and what the franchise can tell you as a prospective owner. I would never want to, and this is a personal thing, also a regulatory thing. I can't tell you how much you're going to make. Right. Every market is different. Every human is different. Right. Again, back to the plan. If you're not following the plan, I don't know how to tell you that you're going to make money. Right. It's really, do you want to make money? Is the question. And how much effort, how much money of your own are you going to put into making money? Like if you want to be passive with it and not do anything, then I'm going to tell you, go call your favorite stockbroker, give him your money, and then let him manage it for you. It's kind of the same thing. So we are just trained to help owners or potential owners understand that I can't tell you how much money you're going to make because the variable that I can't account for is you.
It's twofold. It's one, the legality side, right? But it also should be common sense. Like, how can it, because we're so used to a job. If sense was
common,
it would just be called sense.
Correct.
Right? So it is, but you got to get out of that corporate mindset, right?
Which is hard. Think about it. We've been trained since we were old enough.
Brainwashed.
My son's 16. What was the first thing he did?
Right.
Went and got a job.
He got a job. How much money do I make?
How much money do I make? I'm paying per hour to wash dishes and all of those things. Sorry, Austin, but like we are trained from a very young age. Like go back in the day, people delivered papers. Newspapers. Here you go, newspaper boy. I hear that a lot from franchise prospects, candidates. Like I had a newspaper route, I mowed lawns, I did. So we've been trained to work and then get paid.
This job equals this pay.
Correct.
Right? Which is, so again, both the good and the bad, because it's a hard transition for people coming out of the corporate world, but it's also why they're coming out of the corporate world.
Right. But how do you balance that?
Right.
Like, I don't know how. I do know how, because I have been an employee. You've been an employee.
Yes.
It was incredibly difficult, but the quality of life really weighed out.
Right.
But I've always worked really hard. Like everything I've done, I've always worked really hard. So was failure an option? No, I had 2 kids. I had a mortgage. Like someone had to pay the bills, and
there's only so much ramen we can eat, right? So, but it is when you go back to the legality side and then the common sense side of the franchisor can't tell you how much money you're going to make. The other piece of that is where I go back to when people ask us and our team at Fran Coach, how much money can I make, or which franchise should I own? The money follows the fit, right? And so if you are in a franchise that's not a fit, guess what? You're not going to do as well as all of the other owners.
But why?
Because it's going to be a plant, like we talked about, like if you got to go cold call all day long, right? And you're like, ooh. But there are people, and we've worked with clients, love doing that. So they're going to gravitate towards something, but they're not going to be great at a UPS store standing behind the counter waiting for somebody to come in. But somebody that likes that, it's gonna gravitate. They're gonna gravitate towards it more and be more likely to have success because it's what they're good at and what they want to do.
Is it that working in the business category?
I think definitely, right. And I think the other piece, when you go back to why, yes, you have to shift your brain out of the corporate on like, well, this is my salary.
Yes.
Therefore, I need that. No,
but
you don't.
Can probably, not probably, you can build that into the model,
yes,
right? Like if there is a sense of, there's just no way I can't not have a paycheck, like I'm psychologically programmed to have money go in.
Then add that as that operating capital. That's a line item of the bill that you're going to pay every single month.
But for what if those people that are like saying, hey, I want to make $1 million out of these businesses?
Yes.
Do you get that question?
And so to me, that's also part of the beauty of the control of this is you got to find the right fit. And then as we've talked repeatedly and will for the entirety of this show, follow the plan.
What are we doing?
Follow the plan.
Okay.
So, and then obviously the effort piece, but then there's no ceiling to this, right? You've got that job and great, you're making $150,000 a year.
And there are people that have worked in their jobs for 20, 25 years, and this is
what
the
are you
going
to make next year?
Right.
151.
Yeah. If you're lucky.
Right.
Right.
That 2% cost of living raise is awesome. How do you grow this as a franchise brand? So the kind of the scalability piece, because there's a couple ways this can happen where you can take control of that. Let's come back after the break. Let's talk about how we can make more than we ever dreamed possible with this crazy thing called franchise ownership. That's next up on the Franchising 360 show. Welcome back to the Franchising 360 show. And tonight we are talking about how much money can I make? What a great question. Show me. Thank you, Jerry. So there's no ceiling on being a franchise owner like there is a job.
Yeah, because we left this by saying, how do I make millions of,
How do I make millions of dollars? So quickly before that is also to understand some of the happiest franchise owners. You've been in a lot of brands. Some of the happiest franchise owners aren't the top performers.
Correct.
Right? But they're hitting their goals of how much money they want to make.
Right. And it kind of goes back to the same thing we were talking about from like how much money have I made in the past.
Right.
So a lot of times they're actually making more than they had in the past. And they're taking advantage of small business ownership opportunities.
Right. And just time, freedom, flexibility, right? Taking the
that
work-life.
That goes to the fit thing that you were talking, right?
Work-life balance into the life-work balance that you always say. So but if we want to grow, there's really, you're going to hear the term a lot in franchising, scaling.
Okay.
Right? So
but scaling can mean a lot of things.
Like?
Adding more units, adding more territory, adding more trucks, adding different franchises, complementary franchises. There's a wealth of ways to scale, which means make more money.
Yes. And so
with fewer resources.
The scaling is so big, I think we can, dare I say, scale that into a whole episode.
Maybe.
And I did say it, so it's already out there.
Wow.
Right? So
the dad jokes are endless over here.
It's how I roll. So
great.
There we go. But it really is. There's so many different opportunities that it is whole show worthy.
And the thing that we haven't talked about is kind of like on the whole, hey, how much money can I make with this? The great thing about franchising is that there are franchise owners likely in the brands that you're going to look at. Who better to tell you how much money they're going to make than other people?
Right.
We care what other people make. And in franchising, we generally will tell you how much money we're making. We're going to tell you the pros and the cons, the things we wish we would have done. I don't know, followed the plans.
Right.
But most people will talk to franchise owners and those brands and kind of get a feel for, as of today, 2024, how much money am I making?
And even if you're talking to an owner, I'm interested in this franchise, and I talk to an owner, and they have a single unit, whether it's a location or a territory, yes. They're making X amount of money. And I'm like, geez, I want to make more. Well, how much more? Do you want to make double, triple, 5 times more? It's just telling you what that's, and you're like, man, I love this business. This is a great fit for me.
Right.
Then scale it. Right. It's really, again, it always
Create
goes back
efficiencies, to, right? That's business 101.
It always goes back to the control, right?
Control. Such a good word.
It is the biggest
word.
The biggest driver with this, but it is, I think people need to understand, number one is the franchisor legally cannot,
we cannot
tell you how much.
Hence the struggle on the show for me today.
And
it's not my most favorite.
If a franchise was telling you or guaranteeing you how much money you can
then
make,
you should run for the hills
fast,
right?
And call the Federal Trade Commission.
And call the Federal Trade
really,
Commission,
really quickly.
Because we're legally not supposed to do that.
Yes, and again, and part of this is also to help people understand. Even just your reaction to some of the things on this show after all these years is a little uncomfortable because you just have it so drilled in your head. We can't do that. It should totally be common sense.
And I really want people to do the research, right? Yeah. We're not asking. Some of these investments that I've worked with are north of $1 million. Yeah. And so when we go back to that business acumen place, work through the math. Yes. I'm not a math wizard. You're probably over here calculating all the things in your head. That is not me. I still need a calculator, and those stay readily around my desk. But one can sit and think through how much money I'm putting into something, how much money I need to get out of something, and make sure it's the right decision. You shouldn't rely on someone else to tell you how to do that. You don't have someone else telling you how much money can I really go afford that car right now? We really want that car, but can we really afford it? It's the same thing with buying into a franchise business. Do the homework. That's the business acumen. Make sure that it matches your goals.
And how to figure that out and the math that's involved is really kind of, there's the net profit fallacy that we talk about a lot. And we've got a show coming up here in a few weeks, really all about kind of the different myths and misconceptions with this.
Love the Mythbusters.
And me too. It's going to be a fun one, even though I have a hard time saying that word for some reason.
Yeah, it's the childhood lisp that you still have.
So, but I'm working through it, folks. So, but next week, let's roll back into scaling and show people how they can really grow an empire. Because
we're not now replacing a paycheck. We're now trying to be like the Elon Musk of the world, right?
You make it whatever you want it to
whatever
be, which is really the cool part.
Perfect.
So in the meantime, before next week, if you have some questions or, positive only comments, the Franchising 360 show is our website. Send it in. We're more than happy to ask and answer your question. And you get one of these super cool mugs. So who doesn't want one of those? But until next week, this is the Franchising 360 show. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Friday night.